Time, and that means it's time for us to do LinkedIn Live. I'm so glad you're here. We've got a great topic today, which is leading through trust, why it matters, and how to do it. So, why don't you say hi in the comments and just let us know where you're joining us from? It's always fun to see people getting on these LinkedIn Live events from all over the world. It's very cool how we can join together here and talk about these topics related to work and life and careers and leadership and all that kind of stuff. So happy that you're here. Leave a comment and just say hi and tell us where you're coming from. This time of year is so special here in the northern hemisphere. It's turning to fall and you can feel it already the last couple of days. It's not so blisteringly hot, and the air quality is different and the sunlight is different. There's a breeze that there wasn't before, and I didn't use air conditioning last night to sleep. So it's a contemplative time of year. It's a kind of, in some ways, a wistful or pensive time of year. The French have an event around this, or a recognized sort of ritual they call la rentrée, the re-entry to real life after the lazy days of summer, la rentrée. And it's in the bus stop shelters, there's advertising la rentrée, coming back to sort of the real world after, you know, summer energy, which is just so different. And so I feel like everywhere in the world, this time of year is just such a great time to stop and reflect and say, what am I doing? Where am I going? Where have I been? Where do I want to go? These bigger questions that we don't always stop and really explore. This is the perfect time of year to do that. If you're into a New Year's thing, if you're the kind of person who gets into, in 2023, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, and I'm going to launch my big move, whatever it is, now is a fantastic time to start thinking about that, so that you don't get to December 27th with all the hubbub and everything going on at the end of the year and say, oh, I better think about next year. You can start thinking about next year right now. It's the perfect time. Just calmly, when you're not doing something, I know you're always doing something, but when you have a moment, it's a gift to yourself to take a few minutes and think about yourself and your path and where you want that path to lead in your career and in your life. You could get a journal. It's an easy thing to do. Bookstores have them, they have them online. You could actually use any kind of notebook, the dollar not notebook, as a journal, and just write in the journal. What happened in 2022? What happened to me personally? What did I learn from 2022? And what are my plans for myself for 2023? That's a question that deserves some of your time and energy, doesn't it? It's a question about where do you want to go, and that's you deserve that. You deserve that reflection. You deserve that thought process. You deserve that time and that energy devoted to you. I'm certain that you spend a lot of time and energy helping other people. As well you should. It's a great thing, right? Giving, giving, giving at work, at home, it's wonderful. This is, you know, it's one reason we're here on earth, right? Is to help the people around us. And at the same time, you deserve that time. You deserve attention to yourself and how you feel and what you want and your own path. Don't you think so? I'm going to look at the comments really fast, and then we will get into the topic, leading through trust. Hello from Dubai and Namibia. So wonderful. In Dubai and Algeria, Malawi and Niamey. I am not sure where that is, so you might have to fill us in on that. Let's see. From Vancouver, so beautiful. From Israel, hello, hello. From Vancouver as well. From Papua New Guinea, wow, so great that you were here. Santa Barbara, Cleveland, Ohio, and Richmond, Virginia, New York City, yeah, and Saudi Arabia and India, brilliant. And from Nigeria, Ghana, hello, hello, South Africa, UK, Nepal, beautiful, Chad, and Chandler, Arizona, and South Carolina, LA, Nigeria, Tunisia, Kenya, LA, Brazil, New Jersey, my home state, Zambia, sorry, West Africa, wonderful, Houston, great, great, great. We shall try to share some leadership tips. Hello from UAE and Namibia and Dubai. We were there already, so that's beautiful. I'd have a few more comments in a moment. We're talking about leadership today, and specifically, we're talking about leading through trust. So I'm going to talk about what that means, why it matters, and of course, how to do it. And this LinkedIn Live event is being recorded, so it will show up on LinkedIn for a few days, and you'll be able to see it there. So you can see the whole thing over when you have time if you're in the middle of wacky stuff like most of us are on any given day. So, what is leading through trust? What does that mean? Trust-based leadership. It's just leadership, right? What's the trust part? Well, in order to talk about trust-based leadership, we have to talk about leadership in general. Leadership means obviously leading people. Could be in an office, could be on a sales floor, could be in a warehouse, could be absolutely anywhere. People could be with you physically in the same space, or they could be miles away. They could be continents away, right? But we're talking about leadership as a topic about leading a group of people to accomplish something, maybe at work. That's kind of our frame for our company, Human Workplace. And for me personally, is leadership at work. Although leadership in other places, of course, is very common and wonderful too, like in a social activity, in a community group, right? All leadership is not at work. You exercise leadership at home. I'm sure of it all the time and with your friends, right? So, but we are really focusing on leadership in the workplace and the kind of leadership that people exercise specifically when they are responsible for a group of employees or contractors as their designated leader, the boss, right? That's the kind of leadership we're talking about. I have a team. I lead this team. How am I going to lead them? So it's very, very important to understand whenever we talk about leadership that the traditional method and model for leadership or management in the United States, where I live, and in the West, and really everywhere that the United States has exported its ideas about business and work, which is all of the industrialized world and way beyond that, right? So, really, in almost everywhere on our planet Earth, the idea of leadership is actually based on fear. It's not trust-based leadership. What I am talking about and teaching today, it's fear-based management. Why do I say that our leadership model, our traditional leadership model, is based on fear? Here's why. Fear-based management, which we in the Western world basically just call management because we haven't seen another model, most of us. Fear-based management means getting people to do what you want them to do because they have to. It's getting people to do what you want them to do by force, by threats, and by consequences, negative consequences that will occur for them if they don't do what they're told. So if you think about our traditional view of management through that lens, you say, wow, there's a lot of that in my job. Actually, all my past jobs where it was you better do this or else. That is the message behind fear-based management, which sadly, a lot of us just think of as management. There's a policy. If you're late, you get in trouble. What do you get if you're early? You don't get anything if you're early, but if you're late, you get in trouble, right? If you don't do this thing, you get written up. If you do this thing you're not supposed to do, you get written up also, right? There are consequences and punishments everywhere. And in a fear based environment, we know what those consequences are because they're spelled out, right? If you think about your own experiences being managed over the years, even if you manage tons of people yourself, you are still managed by someone else, by other people. And if you think about that energy, oftentimes, especially in more entry level jobs, the sort of the bottom of the pyramid, the organizational chart, there's a lot of fear in it. You had better not touch that thing. You will no longer be allowed, effective April 15th, to use that entrance, right? It's don't do it. You better do it. Here's what happens if you don't. It's fear. And individual managers, in their own stress, right, with the things that are loaded on top of them to accomplish, they will, on top of the official company or organization policies, they will also use fear in their communication with employees without even realizing they're doing it. I've done it. Virtually every manager has. They've said, if this doesn't get finished, it's going to be a problem, meaning a problem for you, not a problem for me, problem for you. Like, I'm going to have to see about your raise or your performance review or whatever. It's so common, we don't even notice it, but it's all based on fear. Managers will say, "Can you get this thing done this weekend?" Actually, no, I'm booked this weekend. Why? What do you have going on? We know better. It's none of your business what a salaried employee is doing this weekend, right? Or an hourly employee either, for that matter. But we just think, well, I have to use fear. I have to use that crop on the side of the horse because that's all I've got. And my boss is on my butt, right? We are trained to manage through fear, and we're trained to be managed through fear also. It's sad, but it's ubiquitous. I mean, it's everywhere, and we have to see it before we can do anything about it. Take a quick break and look at the comments. Fear-based management is detrimental to businesses everywhere, for sure. Low employee retention, no loyalty, and pushes dishonesty in the workplace. It's absolutely true. What Jamie said about dishonesty. If you're in fear at work, you're afraid of your boss. They might be friendly sometimes, but you know that if you make a wrong move, something bad will happen to you, right? What would you be afraid to do? Well, you'd be afraid to mess up. You might be afraid to ask questions. If your boss doesn't like you asking questions, you could get in trouble for asking questions, even though the answer to the question could help you do the job more effectively. You could get in trouble for making a suggestion, even though the suggestion comes from a great place and could help your employer, literally help them be more effective, please their customers better, and make more money. But you, as the messenger, I think we probably want to do something about our response form for customer service queries. People are not liking it. How dare you say that? I designed that myself. Boom. Now what are you going to do? You're not going to say anything. So who benefits? No one benefits because now you're silent. The company's not getting the benefit of your feedback. And if you're interacting with customers or vendors or investors or any part of the outside world, candidates, right? Anybody outside the company walls, their feedback is not getting through either because you're in fear, justified, justified fear of opening your mouth. And also, here's the thing, folks, you're an adult and you should be able to speak your truth wherever you are, politely, professionally, of course, judiciously, but you should be able to do that. And no job pays you enough to silence you. Like, I'll do the work, but you can't tell me what I may say and what I may not say because I'm a grown ass adult, as they say, right? So that's fear based management. And the trouble is, it's so prevalent, it's so widespread. We don't talk about it, we don't even notice it. When people notice that is when a recruiter calls and says, "Hey, I have another opportunity." And they say, "Oh, I didn't know if I was interested, but now you called. I just had a really unfortunate interaction with my boss, and I'm gonna look into that opportunity because this is not it. I'm 42 years old. I'm not gonna be managed that way." That's fear-based management, and it's extremely common. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about something completely different called trust-based leadership. Now, instead of consequences, threats, negative things that will happen if you don't do what you're told, it's opening up the conversation and the energy to say, "I trust you. I trust you," right? I trust you. Instead of the managers get frustrated, of course they do. They're human beings. Someone comes with a question, the manager says, "Okay, it sounds like you need an answer to this question today, and I totally get that and respect that, and I thank you for coming to me with this, but I don't have it. Honestly, mentally, emotionally right now. I'm right in the middle of this thing for the boss and the other one and the customer, and it's going to take a couple hours. Do you feel like if I say, do what you feel, use your good judgment, that you could proceed into this thorny issue? I mean, I would love to talk to you about it tomorrow morning, but if there's things that you have to take steps this afternoon, do you feel like you could do that? Oh, you do? It's okay, brilliant. Do it. I trust you. Meaning you won't get in trouble if it wasn't the right answer. I don't have time to attend to this, and I trust you. I mean, I hired you after all. So by all means, please do it. Let's talk, text me when you leave the office, whatever. That's trust based leadership. It comes from the presumption that the people you hired are competent to do their jobs without being watched like a hawk. Many of us are comfortable with fear based management. You know why? Because that's what school was. We went to school. I don't know about you, but I remember first grade. Kindergarten was a blast. Kindergarten was like, let's play. Then we have story time in the circle. It was so beautiful, right? And when my kids were in kindergarten, I was like, oh, look at the little pumpkins. They're speaking up, they're sharing stories. Sometimes they're silly, they roll around, and the teacher says, oh, Susie, come back in the group. We need your energy here. Kindergarten was so beautiful. And then first grade, wow, right in the desk, in the row, hands on the desk. Don't doodle, don't do this, don't do that. Don't look out the window. It was pure pain for me. It was horrible. The teacher at the front of the thing looking at you like, I mean, it was not chill. I'm older than you, but it was not cool. It was pure fear. Imagine doing that to a little kid. That's classrooms across America, of course, and the world. Of course, not all. There's beautiful, beautiful educators, family members of mine, and friends, and we all know amazing, wonderful, gifted, and compassionate, beautiful angels on earth, educators who just embrace these kids and their flames, and that's a wonderful thing. But I'm saying that the system is built in the desks and rows, and here's what you can't do, and don't mess up. We get used to fear-based management early. Some of us face it at home, face it in other places where we go. So when we get to the workplace, it might be disappointing, but it's not necessarily shocking, right? We expect that maybe no one wants to hear our ideas, or maybe the big thing is hitting the metrics, and if you do more than hit the metrics, it's like, okay, fine, but you got to hit the metrics or something bad will happen. And that is the prevailing, sadly, style of management in use in the business world and many other worlds today. So what we're saying is that's no good. It's no good. It's from an earlier age. And here's what fear-based management does. It tamps down everybody's enthusiasm, creativity, goodwill, what we call engagement, right? Who can connect when you're afraid of getting in trouble, doing the wrong thing? No one. You want to just have people, whoosh, the energy is just flying. You want to have people leave your company, leave your office, let's say, at 5:15 at night saying, what a day. I mean, I got like 6 huge things done. I had a fantastic conversation with this person I've never talked to before. I just feel great. I feel in my power. I feel connected to my power source. I'm doing this stuff that's good for our customers. The customers are so fabulous. It's good energy. You feel good. The people around you feel good. That's what you get through trust. But it takes pulling back on these sort of overdone policies and standards and metrics, which many management teams are obsessed with, addicted to, yardsticks everywhere for pointless things. Like they don't literally trust the people they themselves hired. It's their own fear inside. When it's a tiny startup, sure, everybody do what you want, but as we get bigger, oh no, somebody might rip me off. Sweetheart, people are going to rip you off. That is the way of the world. And you know what you're not going to do? Live your whole life behind this huge fortress wall trying to ward that off. You are going to rip people off advertently, if that's a word, or inadvertently. It's going to happen. Bad things will happen, but more good things will happen. And you know what? You're going to bring in more good energy, and more good things will happen when you trust the people around you. They are your team. They are your team. You chose them through a careful recruiting process. Now celebrate them. Of course, we need controls on spending money, right? We need controls on We have to have fire safety. We have to have safety. It's more important than anything else, right? In any workplace or any work environment. Safety from physical danger, safety from sexual harassment, safety from discrimination, right? Pay and equity. We know this is critically important. But then after that, the policies relate to safety. But then after that, we say, use your good judgment. We are here. We're going to help you, of course, but we're not trying to constrain you so that your whole job is meeting yardsticks and you never get to use any of your creative brain or your creative energy or your human energy. Why would we do that? We need every single bit of available pixie dust, right, from our employees together on these projects. And that means we have to let go and back off. It's a much smarter way to lead. It's cheaper, costs less, it's more productive, more profitable. There's every single thing to recommend it, but it takes stepping into our own fear as managers and saying, I guess I can give these employees that much freedom. I guess I can allow this employee to say something that I don't necessarily want to hear. I will not collapse. I'm strong, right? I remember years ago, a friend of mine had a roommate, and they were super young, like 23, and the roommate worked at Target as a manager at Target stores. And the young man who worked at Target, he said it's very interesting that the cashiers at the checkout stands have a dollar amount. I don't know what the dollar amount is, but it's not $2. It's a decent amount of money, and they are allowed. That's their discretionary amount. If there's something, customer says, I bought this. I found this cute dress for my daughter on the spinner rack, but it has a little hole in the shoulder. I can sew it, but you should take something off. And the cashier has the latitude, the freedom to do that. They've been through cashier training. The organization trusts them, and they say, "Okay, I'm gonna take $10 off," and they do. And the shopper says, "Cool, great, that's a perfect thing." So they give them latitude and in basically an entry level job because they realize, why would I have this person in this job if the manager has to always run over? Oh, let me inspect that. I don't know. That hole in the shoulder. It looks like about 3/4 of an inch. Do I have a measuring tape here? Right? Everything is not about control. We all benefit when we open up some of those tight little transactions and say, you are not allowed to approve this. And this is in virtually every organization. We get fearful too soon, we overdo it, and people feel like, well, why do I even have this job? Why did you even hire me? You said you wanted to hear my ideas. I remember giving you ideas on the interview, but since I got here, you haven't wanted to hear my ideas. That's fear right there. Now, think about it. Why would a manager not want to hear their employees' good ideas? Even when they know this is a great employee, they're really smart. Why would a manager not want to hear an employee's ideas? See if anybody answers that one. The reason why a manager would not want to hear your good ideas is that it is threatening to them to hear your good ideas because they were not theirs. And this is where we are like 6 years old underneath and not that far underneath the surface. We are babies, right? That haven't been heard and haven't been respected as much as we should be. I'm not belittling. This is all of us, right? If we would tell the truth. So your manager doesn't necessarily want to hear your good ideas because that manager could feel fear. I mean, adrenaline racing through their system. How come you came up with these good ideas instead of me? I'm the manager, but you had the good ideas. That makes me feel bad about myself. So then, as a manager, if I'm going to go right to fear, that fight or flight, well, I'm the manager, so it's not going to be flight. I'm going to stay and squash you. I'm going to say, yeah, those are bad ideas. You're wasting my time with your dumb ideas. Go back to work. Now, that employee may just say, well, forget this guy and leave and go to another company. But I would rather replace that employee than deal with my own fear of not being the top dog. And that's what fear based management is. It is allowing the fear that crops up in these workplace hierarchical situations to overwhelm our good judgment and even our business judgment, because leading through trust is much better for a business or any organization than managing through fear. So then why is there so much fear-based management around? Well, it's obvious because individual managers are the ones who feel the fear. They feel the fear coming down from the top. If I go to my manager and say, my employee had these ideas, I'm afraid my manager is going to say, why didn't you have the ideas? This is also why managers will steal your ideas and say, oh, that was my idea. Well, I put the idea in your mind. No, you didn't. Well, now officially now I did. I'm the manager, so that's the official narrative. This is fear-based management. When we talk about fear-based management, where's the fear in it, right? Fear is connected to fear-based management in two ways. The first one is obviously that a manager or someone else, a teacher, parent, God forbid, anyone in authority, will use fear as a motivator. That's fear-based management. You'll get in trouble, you'll get written up, they'll shame you, right? And so our fear that they are responding to is we don't want to get in trouble, we don't want to look bad, we don't want our peers to make fun of us, right? We want to be in the group, we want to be popular, we want to make a contribution, we want to have our managers good, we want to be in their good graces. So they're using fear as a motivator. The other way that fear-based management is connected to fear is that they're using fear as a motivator because they themselves are in fear. It is so easy to evoke a fear reaction in people at work. You can do it without trying at all. I know I have. Without trying. Without trying. They will You will see the fear reaction on their face when you say something they were not expecting you to say, right? It happens. And because fear is so visceral, it activates the limbic nerve, the reptilian part of our brain. It's not a reasoned, sophisticated conversation over tea and crumpets, right? It's instant. And you see this in people at work. You've seen this in managers' faces. I know you have. Like, what? Like, how dare you? How dare you say that? Or you shook my frame, or that's not your decision, or blah, 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 whatever. They're in fear, like, oh no, I'm under attack. And so, boom, I'm the manager, and I'm just going to take my stress right now and put it right on you. Why don't you go back to work? If I wanted to hear your ideas, I would tell you, oh, oh, dis. Okay, fine. Now I have to decide as an adult, taxpayer, fully fledged adult out here, whether I'm going to tolerate that or whether I'm going to get another job. And this is one of the biggest reasons why people leave their jobs. Fear-based management. And this is also why I'm not a huge fan of the notion or the construct of emotional intelligence. I still use the term because it's just out there, but emotional intelligence is like a noun. It's like a thing, like a lunchbox. And it's like, I have emotional intelligence. Do you have emotional intelligence? There's courses like, here's emotional intelligence. Here's your certificate. You have emotional intelligence. It doesn't work that way. Fear is situational and it comes and goes, and we all feel it. I don't care if you say someone has emotional intelligence, they're not subject to fear. Give me 5 minutes with them. And I bet you I can evoke fear in them. Horrible thing to do, only for illustration purposes, right? We're all human beings. You can't just climb out of fear. You can't say, I have emotional intelligence, therefore I don't ever feel fear. What? Also, the idea of intelligence, tying emotional flexibility and repertoire to intelligence is, to me, is gross. It's not, we just put intelligence on such a pedestal in our society. Like, what does that even mean? We know it's not SAT scores, it's not intelligence. What is intelligence? How about if we just forget about it and just talk about how to be with one another, given that fear and trust are in constant movement based on situations, based on circumstances, based on our resources on any given day, what we're going through, what our colleagues are going through. Let's just be honest and talk about fear and trust at work. One thing I love about our company, Human Workplace, is that people will say that, honestly, that idea brings up fear in me. Thank you for saying that. Great. What kind of fear? I don't know. I just think if we do this thing, I don't know if it's good for our brand, or maybe I don't know if we want to partner with these particular people, or blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I want to hear from your gut. I want to hear from your gut. I want to hear from my gut. I want to strengthen my gut so that it is talking to me all the time, because this is wisdom that evolved literally in our species over millennia to keep us safe. But notice at work how often we silence our gut. No, gut, I don't want to hear from you right now. I'm listening to my brain. I'm trying to calculate how to stay on this manager's good side to preserve my job. because the job is stability. But wait, 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 wait. In a calmer moment, your gut would speak up and you would kind of silence the fearful part of your brain and you would say, I mean, I'm not trying to antagonize my boss, but I don't need this job. There's other jobs, right? There's not one employer in my town. I can stay in trust. I can stay in my confidence and my trust and know that if I speak too much truth for my manager to handle and they let me go, I can find another job, you know? This is the struggle that we are all in between fear and trust. And it's so, so important in the management realm, in the leadership realm. We have to talk about it all the time. I'm going to take a little pause and look at comments, and then I'll come back to the agenda. Fears about losing the job, and for sure, fear works there. Yeah, fear works. Here's the thing: fear based management, the reason it's so popular, it reinforces the unequal power structure, but also because it's fast. Fear, I mentioned limbic nerve, boom, it works fast. You say to an employee, I don't want to hear that. Get out of my office and go do that thing. They're gone. They're like, okay, sir, ma'am, let's do it. Trust is slower. When you manage through trust, you don't get that instant reaction. But the thing about fear-based management is it's fast and then it immediately fades away. And what does it leave in its wake? What does it leave as embers? Resentment. Of course, you disrespect someone at work, an adult, they'll do what you ask in the moment because fear kicks in, they're going to do it. But how do they feel afterwards? What a jerk, right? Can't believe they talked to me that way. And that resentment is very deep and long lasting. Doesn't disappear the next day. They're going to be bruised. And the manager deserves to have employees feel bruised because they are the ones who bruise them out of their own, desire to get rid of their own fear. You've seen managers come out of a meeting and they're because their manager read them the riot act and yelled at them or something, put pressure on them, and what do? Whoosh, they just put it right on the employees, like putting a hot poker in the fire, and then you got to get rid of that heat. Like, psh, I'm going to put this in a bucket of water, and that bucket will absorb the heat. Or getting rid of static electricity by shocking your friend, right? So that we're going to talk about fear. We haven't been talking about it at work, and we have to. We have to because we talk about the formal systems. Here's the policy and the structure at our job. Here's the org chart, and it's all no. It has nothing to do with anything. Talk about the dynamics. Who said what to whom, and how did it land, and how do they feel, and how's the team? And if you don't know that, then you don't know anything about your organization. It's not measurable, but it's listenable. It's capturable. It's sensible, right? You will get this information if you're open to it. Okay. I have a strong gut feeling I need to have a super honest convo with my boss today. Today's talk is incredibly relevant. I'm so glad to hear that. I'm so, so, so happy to hear that. That's why I do this stuff because we all go through this stuff and we need to talk about it. Okay, we got all the greetings from everywhere, which is beautiful. What does it say? I speak English. So wonderful. That's a hard thing. English is not an easy language to learn. True leader will ask how you can assist if a project is late. I am all about that. I see this fear-based style everywhere. Case in point, messages confirming a doctor's appointment include a threat that if you don't cancel within a certain time frame, you'll be charged. I mean, yes, it's everywhere. Guarded, protected. Oh my God, don't let anything bad in. Look at one way of thinking about fear-based management or fear-based anything is protecting against harm, against bad things. I mean, we have to do it to a certain degree. If you have a car, you have to have auto insurance because a bad thing could happen. You have to pay like into the air. I'm just paying into the air in case a bad thing happens, right? And at work, we need a policy about physical safety, about fire alarms. We need a policy about sexual harassment, or people won't know what to do if that happens to them. Interesting thing about sexual harassment policies, I've read, I don't know, a couple hundred of them. They all speak to the perpetrator. We do not tolerate, here at XYZ Industries, we do not tolerate sexual harassment. Horrible thing to say in a policy. Yes, you do, though. You don't even know. And you sit on a mountaintop. We do not tolerate, but honey bunch, you do because it happens. It happens everywhere. And instead of just making this pronouncement that everyone knows is nonsense and then saying, if you should ever sexually harass someone, we're going to be on you. Perpetrator doesn't care about your policy. Everybody knows sexual harassment is not allowed and it's illegal, but it happens anyway. Why? Because they figure they can get away with it. So, I mean, what are you doing up here saying we will not tolerate? I don't know. Beg to differ. right? Beg to differ. But more importantly, talk to the prospective victim, talk to the survivor, talk to the person who's going to encounter this and say, look, here's the thing in detail. Somebody could say or do something to you that is not cool, that is not chill, that is not appropriate, and that constitutes sexual harassment or veers close to the edge. And that is not okay with us. We don't want to hear about we want to hear about it. We certainly don't want to hear that it took place, but we want to hear from you if you're worried about this. And there won't be any repercussions. There won't be any retaliation on you. And here's the specific person to contact. That's all they do. It's one way to handle it. Here's the 1-800 confidential hotline. If this happens, you're going to talk to the person who's going to be affected by this, not you think you're going to prevent someone from sexually harassing an employee because there's a policy that says you better not, or what? Fear doesn't work because there's always somebody to say, or what? The worst you could do is fire me. It's a big deal. I've been fired before, right? It's old school. It's pointless. It's impotent. It's dumb. And it's insulting to employees because people don't like to get yelled at, like this Virginia's message. If you don't cancel, then okay, it's in the minute, right? You know, I'm missing the dentist appointment because my tooth fell out and I can't. I mean, fear in general is harmful. It is not helpful. You are not going to threaten anybody, right? People are brazen now. They will walk in 6 people to a retail store and grab all the merchandise off the thing and be like, well, right? It was social norms that kept people from doing that before. And some of those social norms are just eroding in front of us and they're just doing it. And they're like, yeah, well, if you catch me, you catch me. But I don't think you're going to catch me. So if you think about that in the workplace, people don't like to be threatened. Obviously, you don't like it. I don't like it. And as managers, we shouldn't be doing it. We shouldn't be doing it. We shouldn't be saying, how long is it going to take you to get that report done? Till 8 tonight? Can I have it by 6? No. If you could have it by 6, I would have told you you'll have it by 6. All you're doing now is putting fear in me. So I should skip dinner with my kids, right? I should stay here in the office instead of commuting. Like, how would that ever, ever, ever make this company better? Yeah, you'll get your report 2 hours sooner, and I'll be that much closer to just leaving here or not giving a dang about the work. It has negative effects, and we're going to step out of it. And you're going to say, so when do you think I can have that report? And they say, well, once I get home and give the kids dinner, I could have it by 8, but I mean 8 o'clock at night. And you're like, yeah, 8 o'clock at night, we'll do it in the morning. Who's waiting for it? No one's sitting by their phone or computer waiting for it at 8 at night. Don't do it. Go home, have dinner with the children, spend your evening. We'll do it in the morning. Most of the stuff we do at work is not life or death. But fear comes in and it's like, oh, it's life or death. Well, what happens? People's circuits burn out. Their adrenal system that pumps adrenaline through their body, it burns out and they don't have it anymore. And they're sick all the time and they don't care about their work. It's not their fault. We did it to them as managers. All right, so we are going to look at comments, and then I'm going to give you some practical suggestions for bringing trust into your organization to push out the fear. U.S. education system is horrible. No argument from me there. Not the fault of teachers, but it is. So many examples of unrealistic metrics, SLAs out there, and that is true. SLAs being service level agreements. That's a disgusting idea. Are you familiar with SLAs? Oh, I have to take a deep breath. I'm an HR person and I believe in trust. And I worked for 2 companies that were ridiculously successful and had great experiences with employees that, are wonderful people. And a lot of us are still friends today by trusting the people that we hired. And we didn't have all this nonsense. SLAs are service level agreements, not with our vendors where there's a contractual, I will pay you to take our excess customer service calls and you'll pick up a typical call within 4 rings of the phone, whatever. Not like that. No, this is our fellow employees in our own company, but we still have agreements, transactions codified between all the different departments. And I have all these expectations. Everybody has these things, not based on circumstances, not based on my good judgment, not based on you and I have a trusting relationship. You're in accounting, I'm in customer service. We work together all the time, not based on that interplay and that mutual respect for our ability to figure out our way. No. This is the SLA says I will respond to every email from a person in accounting within 2 hours, regardless of what's going on. I will respond. And then you can bust me and I can get in trouble because it took me 2 hours and 42 minutes to respond. That's no way to run a company. And everybody's tied up in knots worrying about meeting the standard instead of excited and hopeful and joyful and powered up doing their job and the good work that they were brought in to do. Make sense? That's right, Jamie. This manager should take credit for hiring an employee with amazing ideas. Pride. Yep, 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 yep. Let's see what else we have. With great resignation like movements, yeah, the great resignation going on today, the earlier fear-based management style will have limited scope. Yeah, we see it. People are saying, I gotta be respected by my boss for my expertise. Why'd you hire me if you don't respect my expertise? And you can tell when there's fear in an environment because you go for the interview and they're not smiling, they're not joking with one another, and they're not casual with you. Everybody seems like, and the problem with an environment like that is that one of the best ways to get in trouble is hiring the wrong person. So that's when they ask you all these questions, make sure you're not the wrong person. Why have you been unemployed so long? And why did you quit that job before you had another job? And oh, you're really worried about hiring the wrong person, aren't you? Would you get in trouble if you hired me and somebody decided I was the wrong person? Right? That's not a healthy environment. What we need to do is get rid of the fear in our management systems and replace it with trust. And that is a personal journey. You can write policies differently, but that's a personal journey in the gut for your management team and your senior leadership team to say, we're going to do this. We're going to step out of fear and into trust because that's the only way we're all going to grow. Me personally, as the CEO, and our VPs and our directors and all of our employees, I need to trust these people that we hired. And here's how you do it. The first thing is to evaluate your own policies and rules and communication. That's a big project. I remember hiring a consultant to lead this project with our team. I'm about like 1992. I'm a little bit probably older than you, but I said, I want to look at everything. I want us to lay it out and see what the messaging is to our candidates applying for jobs, going through the recruiting process, and for our employees. And I want to see the content of the message and the tone, because tone is everything, isn't it? Effective April 15th, it will no longer be permissible to use the back entrance. Please change your plans accordingly. Wow. Feel like the government just talked to me, right? But this is my own work, my own workplace. Why would they address me like that? Dear team, a lot of people have complained, and rightly so, about the fact that the back door to the office is open and accessible to the public all the time. It doesn't feel safe. And so that door now, you need an employee ID to get in, but people coming to our site will be directed to the front. And then if you're meeting a visitor, you can go up to the front and meet them there. Oh, explaining that this is about safety and my well-being, it makes all the difference. If you have issues or questions about it, come see me, Jane in office services. So a person, Jane, who's writing to us with her own voice. And by the way, we know Jane and we trust and love Jane, so it's all good. I'm not going to get stressed out about the fact that I have to walk, an extra 40 feet when I don't have my employee ID or whatever, or visitors have to walk further. It's a good thing for a good reason. Tone, 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 tone. Conversational tone helps written communications tremendously, right? Is there anything worse than getting a memo that is like, please be advised, it has come to my attention? I mean, come on, it's not 1942 anymore. We can write like human beings because we're writing to human beings. Some of the most important human beings on the planet, our own workmates, and we want to respect them in our language. So the first thing you're going to do is look at your policies and procedures and rules, and you're going to look at the content and the language, right? So I mentioned I hired a consultant many years ago, and they really told us this part of your messaging and your policies is completely consistent with what you're trying to build here, but this one is really weird. Where did this policy come from? And we would say, I don't know. We're gonna have to. Yeah, you're right. That policy makes no sense, and it's kind of insulting. And here's a policy that made sense at one time and it doesn't anymore. And here's messaging that goes out to our candidates that this is no good. right? Who came up with this? I feel bad. I didn't have the oversight to make sure that never went out, and it's probably gone to a couple hundred job candidates. It says, "Please be on time for your interview." What? How? Why? I'm not saying please be on time for your interview. Like, is that a welcoming message you're sending to a professional that we invited to come to our facility? Please be on time. Why would you be on time? What's a bigger problem, folks? Candidates showing up late to an interview or showing up on time, and the interviewer takes 20, 25 minutes to come and get them. Let's be real. Let's be real and let's be human. So the first step in looking at trust and fear in your organization, look at what you're doing and saying in your handbook, in your policy manual, and in your communication with candidates and employees, your general communication that everybody gets. That could take a couple months to look at all of that, and you will see things. You'll say, whoa, I didn't realize we were saying this, or I did, but I didn't really internalize why that's not the best way to say it. There's a way better way to convey what we need to convey. We try to, shelter ourselves, get in that box and, batten down the hatches and protect ourselves. You're never going to do it. It's not going to happen. Bad things will happen in every organization, but that's okay as long as you hear about it. As long as people know what to do and you hear about it, right? That's all you can prevent. You can't scare people into not, for example, sexually harassing someone. It's never worked. And why we keep churning out these dumb policies, I don't get. It says, here's what we do to make sure that in the terrible event that you run into some of this, that it can get resolved, right? And it's all about trust. Can't write a policy about that. Okay, the second thing to do is talk about situations all the time. Normalize, that's the new term, right? Normalize talking about icky, sticky subjects. Got to do it. One on one, in small groups, in large groups. Whatever the sticky subject is, here are some sticky subjects at work. Workload. Oh, we don't talk about workload. Because if you're tough, you can handle the workload. You have to talk about workload. Otherwise, people quietly burn out and then they leave, or they're just burned out and they're not motivated and they're sick. And come on, you have to talk about workload all the time. And it has to be fine to say, boss, this is a great project. I'm totally into it, but I am fried up and down. I have 15 service requests from that other department. This thing has to wait. He said, okay, it has to wait. I trust your judgment. When do you think we could get it back online? How about next Wednesday? All right, next Wednesday. It's easier to be a manager this way. It doesn't mean throwing all requirements and all goals to the wind. Of course not. It means, as they say in music, all of our kids are musicians. Praise God, right? They say in music, to get faster, you have to slow down. And the same is true in the working world. To get faster, you have to slow down. You have to slow down and say, what's the right way to do this? You feel like you can get the rest of this stuff done by Wednesday and then get back into this project? Let's do it like that then. And maybe things shift and they can get into it on Tuesday. But saying, no, you have to do it Tuesday, what's that going to do? That's going to create a fear reaction in them. They're not going to be doing their best thinking. You're going to get grudging compliance. That's not what you want. Grudging compliance. All right, fine. This guy wants it Tuesday. I guess I'll just forget about my plans for Monday, right? You don't want grudging compliance. You want enthusiastic support and buy-in, which comes from respect, and that comes from trust. Okay? So the first thing you're going to do to bring trust into your organization is look at what you're saying. Look at what you're saying to new hires in the onboarding session. Don't make that day full of you better not do this or you better not do that. Here's the metrics. No. No. You say, we're so glad you're here. You could have worked anywhere and you came to work here. And so I'm HR, I'm Liz, and my job is to make you glad that you came here and to make it fun and to make sure you feel heard all the time, me and your manager, working together, and all the other managers and our CEO too. That's our view, is that if you're working here and you have choices, we're honored and grateful that you came to work with us, and we want it to be cool and a good experience for you. So you let me know what you need. A lot of HR people are afraid of getting deluged with requests. Well, you will at first, and then you'll take care of them, and that'll soften, because that's energetic too. People complain because they don't feel heard. Once they feel heard, they're like, yeah, I need a better chair, but it doesn't have to be this week. And they'll talk to you about it in a few months or something. The reason you get the flurry of requests for employees is because they have no outlet. And then you give them that, and then everything softens. It's just like a pressure release valve, right, on a pipe. It's just, okay, the pressure goes out. And then you're just walking around the hallway. Liz, if you think about it, will you send me that one form? I say, sure, sure, sure. You got to write it on my hand. Because if I don't write it on my hand, I'll forget. I had a notebook. I don't know where it is. It's in some conference room. All right. Some say things like, I'm having a bad day, or a person in their lives is having a major problem in their lives. I think this is unprofessional and reduces focus. I prefer to have more personable communication verbally. Gonna not address that because I think I don't understand it. Um, let's see. We are first humans before we become employers. We are humans first. We are people first. And we are family members second. And we are friends third, and members of communities, spiritual communities, physical fitness communities, hiking communities, musical communities, anything. And after that, we're employees and workers, right? We tend to push that up in our hierarchy because I need the money. Well, we all need money, but let's remember who we are. We are people first. Your body, your mind, these are your highest priorities, and then the people around you. Why are the people around you second, and your mind and body are first? Because you can't take care of anybody unless you're healthy and whole yourself. So your body and your mind are first. First. Employment, your job is like number 5. You could do a fantastic job. I know you do a fantastic job, but it's still number 5. It's not number 1. Okay. So we said the first thing to do to bring trust into your organization is examine the language and the policies. A lot of policies in corporate and organizational policy manuals and handbooks are not necessary, and they're just punitive, and they don't help anything. They kind of restrict employees. The thing to remember about a policy is you can write a policy and you can send it out, but it's not in people's brains. And if you really want them to focus on the policy and constantly refer to the policy manual, then you're taking up their brain space with something dumb instead of the important stuff, the flowing stuff, the forward moving stuff, the actual work. So think carefully before you enact policies, because they're expensive to administer and maintain. The fewer policies, the better. You need policies around all forms of safety. And that's about it. That's about it. Why else would you have a policy? You may not. Ask your manager, right? Okay, the second thing to do is talk about situations all the time, at meetings, in orientation, in recruiting. When someone asks on an interview, tell me about the culture here. You can't say, oh, it's a great culture. You say, well, let me tell you a story. This is, how I got into the company, and then, this is how we do this, and tell me, what you want to know, because I want you to really feel comfortable about our culture. We try really hard to emphasize trust, right? Performance reviews are a major fear factor in companies, and they've outlived their usefulness too. A lot of big companies have just abandoned performance reviews altogether. They'll give you metrics and show you how you did on various charts if it's relevant to the job, of course, but otherwise, I'm not going to sit here and say, you got an A, you got a B, you're excellent, you're fair. What does it even mean? You're still here, you're on the payroll. I look at baseball teams or sports teams. Everybody has different skills and they work together. It's not like you're great and you're not great. If they weren't great, they wouldn't be on the team. So we don't need to talk about that. Let's talk about the future. Let's talk about your goals, and let's brainstorm together and have an uplifting, validating, forward-looking conversation every quarter or whatever, instead of an annual review where now I sit in judgment on you. Why? What does it do? It costs unbelievable person hours, and ends up leaving people just feeling really like, oh, okay, like, who are we really? I don't feel like I'm qualified to sit in judgment on somebody. That's so dumb. What's the business purpose of it? I hope they learn some things from me, and I know I learned some things from them. So we can drop this idea that I, as the boss, will now can pronounce you above average. In terms of what? It was a whole year. How can you boil it down to one grade? That's the old school fear-based thinking from school, right? You get an A, you get a B. Lots of research that said grades in school are really negative and awful to kids too. And that the only kids who get motivated by grades are the A plus students who might be a little unhealthy in their over reliance on other outside approval. So we got to shift the whole thing. But we can start with our individual organizations. The last way to bring trust into your organization to replace fear is to look at your processes. That's where a lot of fear is hiding out, in your processes, your recruiting process. If it's all about, here's 2 online tests that you have to take before a human being will speak to you, you're driving the best candidates away at the speed of light. They're like, yeah, no, what? You saw my resume. You want to talk to me or not? You saw my resume. Now I get to take tests? I don't think so. Right? No, 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 no. Talk to them. Pick up the phone. It's the most fun part of a recruiting job. So, James, we got your resume. Do you have a second? You're probably right in the middle of something. Nowadays, you would not call. You would text them, email them, whatever. But have a conversation. Let's talk. First of all, I'm calling you about this. You obviously applied for this project manager job. You probably have questions for me. Answer their questions first. Of course, you're using their time. Tell me, like, what can I tell you about our company? Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I do have a couple questions. Da 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 da. Are you the same company where, we were in the news for this or that? Yeah, that's us. That. Oh yeah, I read about you. Regular human conversation. It's amazing. It really, really works. Gives us everything good that we want. So you're going to look at your processes, performance evaluation, the metrics that you use, and of course, your recruiting process, leadership training. Look at leadership training. If it's all very fear based and here's how you write up an employee and here's how you go to HR to talk about performance problems, why are we talking about that? We're supposed to be creating the good energy underneath so there will not be these performance problems, most of which, of course, are based on poor communication or people being too paralyzed with fear to do their jobs as joyfully and expansively as they would otherwise do, you know? And there's a person who's very important in this mix, I will not fail to mention, that's the top dog, the CEO or executive director, or whoever is in charge of the organization. You're not going to bring fear into an organization without their full, support. So you're going to talk to them, get a bunch of people to talk to them, right? Don't create fear in them by marching into their office all at the same time. Hey, boss, we need to talk about fear and trust. But in calmer interactions, say, there's a lot of us really want to look at our procedures and our language and our processes because inadvertently we are crushing some of the best thinking and creativity and teamwork and innovation and collaboration that we really need and could have here. We have to make some tweaks. It's going to be different, but it's going to be really, really, really cool. Just like selling any idea, selling a new product idea upstream, right? We all at some point have to sell ideas upstream. So this is one. All right, that's it, 158. So let's see if we have any more questions to answer. When did the idea that workers couldn't ask for anything enter the mainstream consciousness in Western culture? Industrial Revolution, really, when they got together in buildings to do work as a big group. I mean, 1700s. It's not new. You know what I mean? It's not new. It wasn't like, now here's what's interesting. Before the Industrial Revolution, people learned to work and they went through their careers, unless they worked for themselves, which of course the vast majority of people did as farmers or something like that. But if they worked for someone else, it was probably in a workshop. Apprenticeships were the thing. If you're working for a violin maker, you're going to start off just hauling wood. You're going to start off stoking the fire and doing this non-glamorous stuff. And then when you've proven yourself with that, they're going to slowly begin to teach you how to make a violin with the idea that you could one day open your own violin workshop and then have apprentices and teach them. And that was the system. And then the Industrial Revolution and large scale manufacturing and processing of products came in. And that was kind of out the window. And it was like, here's where you stand and here's what you do. And you do so many units an hour. And this is the job. And it's a very mechanical approach, which is not, it helped, for example, the United States become an industrial superpower, but it also has hurt us in some ways, particularly since the end of the bubble, the post-World War II bubble, where you could get a job and climb the ladder and be really successful at the top. That corporate ladders, sawdust. now. So we're learning new ways to work and new ways to lead. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. This broadcast or this video will be on LinkedIn for several days, so I hope you find it there. Tell your friends to join us every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Liz Ryan from Human Workplace. Keep growing your flame.